Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Daily here on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.com, click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page to get up to a $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Also, the Retired Boxers Foundation with Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos. Make sure you check them out on Facebook. They do great work there. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Daily, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, and he feels like he should be on the top 10 pound-for-pound list, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm doing pretty damn well, Mike. It seems like it's been a while, but honestly, I think you and I think we should all be in the top 10 pound-for-pound boxing commentators. I think they should make that list, or maybe we'll start it over at the Grueling Truth, but we should be on that list.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the stupid shit, we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk a little Vasil Lomachenko, or as I like to call him, Jeremiah's boyfriend. He looked extremely good on Saturday night, and I would like to say that I did. I predicted the round, Jeremiah. You got to give me that.
Yeah, no, I off air, I got to give that to you. I mean, there's no confirmation of that prediction, but no, you're right.
Yes, there is, because you were there and heard it.
No, you're right. Now, you did say it would be an early stoppage.
I said it wouldn't go farther than 4 rounds if Lomachenko was still a great fighter.
Yeah, well, I mean, he went out there and got the job done. I mean, I do think that if Anthony Crolla had taken aggressive posture, I think he could have lasted a few more rounds, and that was my reasoning behind it. I picked on the show, I picked a mid-round stoppage, so I wasn't too far off, but my thinking was after watching Anthony Crolla fight Jorge Linares twice and watching him fight Ricky Burns, that he would come out and try to get it. This was his one opportunity, and he blew it, man. I know Crolla's a nice guy. He's not a bad fighter. Again, I think he's a good fighter, but he's just nowhere near the same talents as Vasil Lomachenko. But I thought his game plan was terrible. He just conceded. He conceded space to Lomachenko. He just let him. I thought Andre Ward actually or Timothy Bradley had the right idea there when he was commentating on the fight, and he was like, hey, Vasil Lomachenko, he typically takes about 2 rounds. He downloads the data, and then he proceeds. He kind of figures you out, and just again, he adjusts his game plan based on what you're giving him. But Crolla he didn't give him much of anything. I honestly don't think Crolla landed a clean punch that entire fight. He just didn't give Lomachenko much to think about, and he went out there and got the job done. To be honest with you, Lomachenko's power looked pretty damn good. I mean, I know he's not seen as a big puncher or one-punch threat, but, I mean, when you evaluate his career, and like I touched upon on Facebook, if he had not hurt his hand against Apirio Peno, the Asian guy, I think it is, what was it, his 4th fight, something like that? Yeah, I think it was his 4th fight. He hurt his left hand, and he had to box most of the way or about halfway with one hand, and he even dropped him in the early going. So, I mean, he'd be 13-1 with 11 knockouts so far, and I mean, he'd have one-punch stoppages over Roman Martinez, Jorge Linares with the body shots, and now Anthony Crolla. So he's not a bad puncher at all, but he went out there and looked pretty damn good, and he expects to be back in September. So I'm looking forward to that, obviously.
All right, and when we look at that, it looks like Arum would like for Mikey Garcia to come down to fight him, but if he doesn't, Bob Arum has said in his infinite wisdom that he would love to have Vasil Lomachenko against number 1 WBC contender Luke Campbell next in a fight in England if WBC lightweight champion Mikey Garcia decides to vacate his title, ready to defend it against Campbell. What do you think here?
I'm trying to think about the politics involved in all this because, unfortunately, that's what we've got to get our hands in, even if we don't want to. Campbell, is the number 1 guy for the WBC. I think Mikey Garcia is supposed to be talking to the WBC soon and talking about his future plans. We know how the WBC is with Mexicans or Mexican Americans. They've shown a clear bias, and they've let Mikey Garcia retain his title even after a jump to 140 and 147. So it's hard to say what exactly is going to go on here. Preferably, I would like to see Mikey Garcia. I still think he's the best fighter at 135 besides Vasil Lomachenko. It's the biggest moneymaker out there. I mean, when you look at the crowd when Garcia fought Errol Spence, I mean, really, they piggybacked off Mikey Garcia's popularity, not vice versa. So obviously good for them there, but that's the biggest sell. That's the biggest fight at 135. Lomachenko Garcia. That's what I want to see. I honestly could give a crap about the belts, to be honest with you. I just want to see the best fight the best. Luke Campbell, as much as I like him, he's a guy I've been following for quite a while too, and I liked him in the Olympics when he won a gold medal. He's just not as appealing for me. But if Mikey Garcia decides to go to 140 or fight at 147, thinking that he can't just jump back down to 135 and be a top player, or he just wouldn't feel comfortable, Luke Campbell's fine. I mean, I think he's a damn good fighter. He's gotten sharper. Whoever's been his trainer the last few years has really rounded his game out pretty nicely. I know a lot of people would like to see him fight Lopez as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if Arum, because he says that he doesn't want these fights to marinate as much as he used to, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I don't know if it's going to happen. A lot of this is question marks, but I wouldn't be surprised if he put Lopez against Comey and then Lomachenko against Campbell, and then you would have a reason to put Lomachenko and Lopez together.
Yeah, because I think still in the end, he could say there's no bad blood with Garcia or it doesn't matter, but we all know the way things work these days that will probably have something to do with it.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's unfortunate. This is what we have to do with. It's a sad state of affairs, and we've got to involve politics so much in each and every discussion that we have. But that's the fight to be made, in my opinion. A lot of people have said, oh, well, Garcia's marketability has hurt because of this. And I do agree with that. I do because, Garcia's aura of invincibility is the cloak's been pulled back and we realize, he's just not that good. At least he just can't carry his skills up to 147 and be a top level practitioner. But it doesn't matter really. Even if his marketability has been hurt, who sells better? Luke Campbell? No. Who sells? Lopez? No. Comey? No. Davis would sell pretty well, but come on, we know Garcia is the biggest fight out there. That's what I want, but like you said, because of the bad blood, we might not see it.
And we will move on from there. Clarissa Shields is the undisputed middleweight champion of the world. The 24-year-old Flint, Michigan native delivered the best performance of her career and cruised to a unanimous decision over Germany's Christina Hammer on Saturday night. After the fight, she made a claim when somebody asked her if she should be on the pound-for-pound list, not the women's pound-for-pound list, but the one for men. And Shields says that she agrees. I'm just going to say that because I really couldn't understand what she said when she spoke because she's not the most literate person I've ever heard. But I watched this fight, part of it, and then I remembered because you told me when I texted you that I couldn't believe I was watching a pillow fight, that Hogan was giving Munguia problems, so I flipped over to that. When I watched this fight, I didn't see an extremely skilled Clarissa Shields. I saw a very bad Christina Hammer. And let's face it, you could talk about this being the biggest women's boxing match of all time, but nobody had ever heard of Christina Hammer until about a year ago when they started to pump this fight up. Hammer is a jab, and that's it. I think when you watch Clarissa Shields, if anybody ever throws an overhand right hand at her, she's going to eat it all day long. And Christina Hammer was not very good competition. Shields has not beaten anybody where you could say that she belongs on a men's top 10 pound-for-pound list. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I agree that she deserves to be nowhere near a men's list. It's just, come on, man. Here's my thing, and I'm going to rant a little bit more. I didn't really get too deep into this when I was talking to John. I had some time constraints because I had something to do, but this is my feeling on the whole situation. Okay, I didn't really watch much of Shields Hammer because what it felt like to me was a bunch of people trying to convince me that this was like the third WNBA finals, and the basketball players were better because they got Olympic, they had the Olympics beforehand. Again, I'm not going to watch, just like basketball, I'm not going to watch a regular season NBA game over or I am going to watch a regular season NBA game over a WNBA championship any day of the week. And I think that's why they put so many, fat slobs on the undercard to, kind of hype this, Shields hammer thing up. But I just wasn't into it. I watched a little bit of it, and I think, like you said, it was pretty much a pillow fight. And I think you're right in your assessment of Hammer, too. Her jab is actually pretty sharp. She's got good length. I had said beforehand, without a whole lot of frame of reference that, she was very Euro in her style, very upright, very jab heavy. But even her right hand, I think, you didn't really elaborate, but her right hand just was not very good. And
she
I was
didn't
surprised
have one, did she?
No, well, and she would throw it from time to time, but she didn't really commit. Like I said beforehand, from what I've seen, she has more of like a winky right kind of style where she tries to touch you as opposed to punch through you, and sometimes she would hook it, and it just looked kind of awful. But again, let's just break it down and get to the the meat and potatoes of the argument here. Shields would have no shot against anybody in the top 100 in the men's division. I
Top
think
1,000?
Yeah, or 1,000. I mean,
Well, we're not talking about her just fighting a man. We're just talking about skill-wise, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's not on that level. I mean, I don't care. This is, when you start, that's where I think the UFC messed up when they start putting, women on pound for pound lists. Let's get real. She competes with nobody. Nobody. If you put her in the ring with, and she may seem to believe that, and even people at the UFC used to have you try and believe that. Dana White, when he was like, oh, well, she'd wreck Floyd Mayweather Jr. Okay, well, yeah, after watching Holly Holm, jab her ass off, that would have just been an outright slaughter. And it's the same thing with Shields. You put her in with a guy, it's lights out. It's no comparison. She doesn't belong anywhere near that. And to be honest with you, I'm not even convinced that she's atop the female pound for pound list. No. I'm no historian. Virtually nobody is. And I went on this in my Casual Mondays. I said this on Twitter to Michael Montero. A lot of people right now are pontificating about, Shields' placement among the pantheon of all-time greats in women's boxing. But let me say something. Virtually nobody has any accurate frame of reference as to who is who when this is all, put together. No, almost nobody knows anything about Shields' competition, Katie Taylor's competition, Cecilia Brækhus's competition. Like, say, Cecilia Brækhus has been, I think, the undisputed champion at 147 for nearly half a decade now. Okay? I mean, Katie Taylor will be the undisputed champion of lightweight if she gets Delphine Persoon in her next fight like she's supposed to. Amanda Serrano is apparently like a seven.
Yeah, and real quick, let me say this. If Katie Taylor beats Persoon, that is 100 times better than anything that Clarissa Shields has done.
And this is my thing is Taylor looks better. Just, again, the eye test. Taylor looks better.
Technically better.
Yeah, she looks better than Shields. Well, not only that, you have to – here's my thing is because I don't know exactly who these women are, what they're doing. I mean, you look at the rankings at 160, I think it is, and the number 6 person is like 4-12. I mean, these are people who are not full-time boxers. But here's my thing again is Amanda Serrano is like a 7-division titleist, whatever that means. But if you look at Amanda Serrano, she has like 117 ranked women in her weight class alone. Between 160 and 168, the 2 divisions Clarissa Shields fights at, she has like 54 people. I mean, just using the law of averages here, you would think that Amanda Serrano, just because she's at 115, right? If you take into account 118 and 122 and some of the other classes that she's been in, again, just based on the law of averages, you would think that Amanda Serrano has fought better competition. But again, almost nobody knows. There's probably 2 people on the planet who are women's boxing historians, and we should be asking them. But in regards to the pound-for-pound list, she doesn't belong anywhere near it.
No. Give me Ann Wolf. Who's the European? Regina Helmick, Layla Ali, Cecilia Brækhus. And Brækhus is old now. Maybe she's got a shot there. But for my money, I think the best female boxer I ever saw, tell me if I'm nuts here, was Lucia Riker. And
Well,
the thing is, almost everyone I just named, at least 3 or 4 of the 5 could punch.
yeah, especially Ann Wolf. Ann Wolf was maybe the hardest female puncher I've ever seen. But that's my thing is, who knows who Ann Wolf really fought? I mean, yeah, she has a loss on her record, but if I'm not mistaken, she went and knocked that girl out in the rematch. But who knows? I mean, who honestly has that? Again, there's probably 2 women's boxing historians in the world, and we should be asking them who's the all-time greatest, because I honestly don't know, and the vast majority of people who are commenting on this topic don't know, and that's just, it is what it is. But she doesn't belong anywhere near a pound-for-pound list.
How about this? Could I wager to guess that nobody cares either, really?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing, right? Is this really ever going to be turn out to be a big thing? I mean, are we really going to get that involved in women's boxing? Again, I'm not going to. I mean, if other people want to,
there's not enough
water
depth to
down
get
their,
involved in it.
Well, even if there was, this is my thing. Even if there was, okay, so I'm not going. Again, I'm not going to watch the WNBA over the NBA. I don't care. Almost nobody does. So again, if you want to water down your entertainment, to watch this stuff, and some PC exercise of virtue signaling, that's fine. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and nobody even wants to watch the WNBA finals if there's an NBA game on, or if there is not an NBA game on. That's why the WNBA or the NBA is losing their ass on the WNBA. And it's basically, you watch the NCAA tournament, watch the women's tournament, watch the men's tournament, just look at the crowds. I mean, it's just, there's not a lot of interest out there outside of Connecticut and a few other schools. Let's go ahead and let's check out Dennis Hogan. And I know I wrote an article about this, but this is, I think, a hugely disturbing trend, especially when I can think of like 4 of the last 5 or 3 of the last 4 pay-per-view fights I watched. The guy I thought that won and the guy that the majority of people, like 80 to 90% people thought won, the 2 Canelo Triple G fights, the Wilder Fury fight, were all just like this fight. Where going in, they're fighting in Mexico, Golden Boy's guy, and you told it to me in a text because we're watching the fight, and it gets like the 11th round, and you text, there's no way they're going to let him win this decision. And it makes it really hard to watch boxing nowadays.
God, it's so damn difficult, man. It's really fucking disappointing. I mean, it's just over and over and over and over and over again. And I know just by the outpour of articles that I've seen recently, you can see that a lot of people are pretty fed up with this shit. I saw John posted it. I ended up reading, thought it was pretty damn good. I ended up posting myself. This guy named Paul Magno, he wrote a good article on this, but it was about the economics of boxing and just how shitty it is. There was on the same website there was an article called "I'm Getting Bored with Boxing," and it was because of all the mismatches and over again. I mean, I'm seeing this consistently, where hardcore fans are just tired of it, I mean, and that's why you lose a lot of people to MMA, because it's better structured. There's a lot more clarity. With boxing, it's just, man, I said it on Twitter before I even texted you. I mean, I was like, okay, right as round 10 was coming to a close, I was like, Chris Mannix, the ringside score for DAZN, he's got it 6-4. Even if Hogan wins the next 2 rounds, he's probably not getting the decision. I ended up texting the same thing to you. And funny enough, after the decision was read, I had a few likes from Australian boxing guys, and it's disappointing, man. It's just too predictable. And Oscar De La Hoya walks into the ring, he puts his legs through those taut ropes, and he's got this shit-eating grin on his face, like, hey, I already know who's got it. Nothing to worry about here. And maybe he was trying to play it off, or maybe he was just drunk, or
you're probably drunk and you're just taking a spoon up the ass. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, he just had this big shit-eating grin, and I was like, Hogan's not getting it. He's not getting it. And the thing is almost nobody expect Hogan to get it. I mean, even John Einrenhofer, our guy for Inside Boxing Weekly, called the guy terrible. And And the terrible guy, is beating the A side guy there, right? They even called they had the audacity to call Munguia a quote unquote Mexican sensation, during the
Hey, but
broadcast.
you got to give
Okay.
Chris Mannix a little bit of a shout out here because he did score the fight the way it should have been
Yep.
scored.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. He didn't toe, a company line or anything. He scored it like he saw it. And like you said, he deserves credit for that. But I like most people saw Hogan boxing nicely, landing clean punches, and Munguia he's not special to me. So, if I'm his promoter, I'm cashing him out sooner rather than later.
So by cashing him out, I think that you will never see a rematch for this fight. I know that they even said they would fight him in Australia. There's no way they're doing that. I don't think they're going to risk another fight here. I think what they'll do is use the excuse that 154 is just too much weight for him to lose, and they're going to move him to 160, and then you've got to give him a couple guys he can smack around pretty easy. And eventually in the next year, they cash him out against De La Hoya. If they stay at 154, they're going to fight a guy like Jesse Vargas. But I hate to tell him this. From what I saw, they better make sure they get the judges in their pocket for Jesse Vargas, too.
Yeah, Vargas is a well-rounded guy. But no, like you said, it's, they're going to give him. I mean, I cringe at the thought of Munguia moving up to 160 and fighting even softer opposition than he's fighting at 154. Don't get me wrong. Hogan, Liam Smith, these guys are not bums. But Munguia is ranked highly in all the rankings organizations, and he was being touted as something to look forward to, and he's just not panning out. So if he moves up to 160 and fights even softer opposition than he has been doing, man, hold your breath. Again, all it's really going to be is a cash out against Canelo Alvarez, and really, you can't blame his handlers for that. I don't want to see it because it's going to be a slaughter. Alvarez is far too good for him. But you can't blame his handlers. Again, if that's what you can get out of the kid, that's what they're going to do.
All right. What do we got for on this day, Jeremiah?
All right. On this day is actually a real good one. I think a lot of us have talked about this, in perpetuity for years now. But it's Marvin Hagler, the marvelous one, versus the hitman, Tommy Hearns. And we all know how this played out. Third round stoppage by Marvin Hagler. And I was watching a little bit of this, just as a refresher coming in. And just the level of skill that these two exhibited, and, the grits and, the grit and the guts and the fortitude. It was really exciting to watch. I mean, it's just something that you long for anymore, especially after seeing all these robberies and all these, pay-per-view cards that never pan out, aren't worth a crap. You watch something like that and you're like, man, you start to get a bit nostalgic, and yearn for the years of the good old days, right? The golden era.
You're not old enough to remember the good old days. You could just watch them on video.
I know. No, you're absolutely right. I don't know what that's like, but I can just watch it and imagine, because it's just not the same anymore. I mean, there's been nothing like that. I mean, yeah, Canelo Alvarez and Golovkin, those were damn good fights, but nothing like that.
There's only been a handful of fights like that, I think, though. So,
right, but I mean, you don't really get guys like that anymore who just willing to put it on the line and go at it. I mean, guys are just so protective anymore, and you just don't get that level of depth. But I will say on Tommy Hearns' part is he started off really, really well. I mean, he was throwing a lead left hook and a check hook against Marvin Hagler and connected quite a few times. I didn't follow, the aftermath of that fight too much, but I've heard that Tommy Hearns hurt his hand, or is that just something that they made up to soften?
I don't know. During the fight, the big one that I heard was, if you watched HBO's Legendary Nights, The Tale of Hagler Hearns, Emmanuel Stewart blamed it on a massage that Hearns got before the fight. And Stewart stated that he felt the massage had weakened Hearns' legs during the fight and led him to adopt a more aggressive approach than he normally would have. I think this. I think the way that Hagler could take a punch, I don't think Hearns ever had a chance the way he fought that fight. The only way he has a chance is if he boxes Hagler. And I think that Hagler was so good it probably still wouldn't have worked, but it would have gave him more of a chance. But I think in the end, if he would have boxed and won a 15-round decision over Marvin Hagler, it would not have resonated by what he actually did that night in those 8 minutes that they fought.
Yeah, I mean, and wasn't there talk of a rematch?
I don't remember a lot of talk of a rematch. I think that Hagler wanted it more than Hearns, maybe. No, I don't know. And the only thing I remember is this, and you talked about it. Hearns before this had knocked out Pepino Cuevas, lost a great fight against Sugar Ray Leonard, had outboxed Wilfred Benitez, one of the great boxing technicians of the 70s and 80s, and then he absolutely obliterated Roberto Duran. And I think this, I was a huge Hagler fan. I liked Hearns too. But the reason I thought this fight was going to be really competitive was that Hearns did beat several middleweights around that time, and the one that stood out to me the most was Marcos Geraldo. And the reason he stood out was Hearns knocked him out in the first round, and Geraldo had gone the distance with both Leonard and Hagler. So he was a tough guy that was known for taking punches. And I try not to watch this fight because when I do, it just makes me feel sad that I got to watch this other crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like.
And the great thing about it was the announcing team, because I remember watching it on closed circuit, and Kirk Gowdy was the host. How great is that? I mean, it was probably, I think it was the last really great sporting event that he was a part of, but he was a guy grown up in the 70s. If Kirk Gowdy was calling the game, you knew the game was important. Whether it was Game 7 of the 1975 World Series or Super Bowl 13. And then you get the broadcasting team ringside was Al Michaels and Al Bernstein. So I think maybe you get possibly the best announcing team you could have got for this fight also.
Wow, what a lineup, man. Al Bernstein and Michaels. Wow. If only we could have something like that anymore, Now, I guess, I don't know. Showtime's crew is very good. I got to give them that. I mean, they have been consistent. They don't engage well. As soon as they brought on, now what the hell is the dude's name? I'm not a big fan of him, but the hype guy. Who's the hype guy that they brought on?
The hype guy for what?
For the Showtime, the Showtime broadcast team. Who's the guy who's always loud?
Oh, Mario Ranallo.
Yeah, Ranallo. Yeah, no, I mean, Bernstein and Farhood and all those guys, they're rock solid. I mean, they've been, working together for many years, and I think they're the best in the business still. Ranallo's annoying, but yeah, you just don't get anything quite like that anymore. And I mean, you don't really even get coverage of boxing anymore, except the biggest pay-per-view events. I mean, hell, if you would just
the thing is, this fight. I remember this fight was so big that the national news, all three networks, led off with it the day of the fight. And I think the fight, I don't remember like a Tuesday or a Thursday, but it was during the week. And I mean, this is how big fights were back then. I remember Duran Leonard won. It was on a Friday night, and I remember sitting by my TV. I had no way to watch it. This was in June of 1980. And I remember like every 4 or 5 minutes, there would be a ticker on the bottom of the TV that would tell what happened in each round. That was just in 1980. Now, Terrence Crawford's going to fight Amir Khan, and outside of their immediate family, nobody's going to know. And it's on pay-per-view, costing like $70 or $80.
Yep. No, you're spot on there. I mean, it's one of those things now. I mean, the fact that we have to sit through, Khan, Crawford, for pay-per-view, and some of these other ones that have been passed around. I mean, it just shows you where we've gone.
All right, the Mets won. That's a good thing for me. Now, if the Indians hold on to their lead by listening to Bobby Sheridan, I'll have made like $160 on a $20 parlay. So this is a good night.
Damn.
Now. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up because it just pisses me off. But I would rather just kind of do shows about all the great fights I saw when I was growing up from now on. But we will be back with daily boxing news tomorrow, and my prediction is this. Bob Arum, as John Einreinhofer said, will make up a fight that'll never happen. Don King will still not exist. That's a positive. All right. Deontay Wilder will threaten to kill Dominic Brazil again. Brazil will threaten to beat up Deontay's mom. And Clarissa Shields will all of a sudden believe that she could beat Muhammad Ali in his prime. That's my predictions for tomorrow.
I don't
And
think
I can predict this. 50% of the people on the, what's it called, the IOTA boxing Facebook site will all
IOTBA.
agree. They'll all agree with Clarissa Shields.
Dude, it cracks me up, man. Like, I saw a number of them today, because I like searching that group because, it's just
It's good for casual Monday.
It's fielding grounds. Yeah, it's fielding. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's I do a lot of farming there for my casual Mondays, and it's funny to listen to some of them where they'll bash Lomachenko, who was a 2-time gold medalist and has done all this stuff in very little fights. They'll bash him and say he hasn't fought anybody or he's scared or just go look at my casual Mondays. I mean, you'll see some of the stuff they said about him. And then in the same breath, they will say Clarissa Shields is a 2-time Olympian and she's beaten Christina Hammer and, maybe she deserves to be on a pound-for-pound list. I mean, Jesus, dude, it's like the hypocrisy hurts my head.
Well, and I think that at some point they need to just throw her in against Canelo Alvarez and see what happens.
Now, well,
yeah, because
no,
the bad thing there is
Cephas.
she'd have to knock Canelo out to be able to win.
Yeah, well, no, they should put her in against. It's like who's the guy? Who's the guy Billy Joe Saunders is fighting? Just let that dude handle it.
Oh, Sir Fat-A-Lot or something. I don't even remember. It was something like She Fat something. And I can tell you this. To make women's boxing better, the 2-minute rounds have got to go. And I think we've said this before. I'm going to up it even. I think it should be 12 30-second rounds, and I think that he used 5-ounce gloves.
There you go.
And they ought to tie them together at the ankles. Then we might get to see a fight. But it's kind of like when me and John bitch about like a 115-pound title fight. It's just not that exciting when you know the other person can't knock the other person out. And I'm sorry. I just like when people knock each other out. It's fun to watch. Now, I don't mind a really good, high-paced boxing match, but we don't get either anymore. It's just getting old. But what we do have is all of our shows on iTunes, iHeartRadio, all these places. Make sure you go give us a like, give us a comment, let us know what's going on. The website is now thegruelingtruth.com. If you click .net, you'll still get to us, but thegruelingtruth.com is where to find us. You can find us boxing-wise at TGTN Boxing, correct?
Correct.
On Twitter, and you can find me at Grueling Truth if you have any questions for the show for tomorrow night or topics you want to talk about, or if you want to come on and talk, you are more than welcome. Just hit us up on Twitter. Don't think I'm missing anything, am I, Jeremiah?
No. The only thing I would say is check out the site. I mean, we've got a lot of interesting stuff up lately. I mean, the Ringside Boxing Show had Deontay Wilder on as a guest, and Mike wrote an interesting article about Dennis Hogan, or what transpired in Mexico with Hogan and Munguia. You had the Inside Boxing Weekly from this morning. You also had top 10 heavyweights of all time list. A lot of interesting stuff up there. A lot of different topics. A lot of variety. So go over there.
Yeah,
and
you can get all sports. And actually, Jeremiah, you don't know this, but we've added Boston Celtics writers now too. And I think we've added another baseball podcast. So make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.com and check us out. Make sure you go to mybookie.ag to check out one of our main sponsors. And also, don't forget Facebook, the Retired Boxers Foundation, with former great amateur middleweight Alex Ramos. And he's a pretty damn good pro, too. So maybe we need to get Alex on one of these nights. I know he's in California, so he's 3 hours behind us. So maybe we get Alex sometime this week.
Yeah. He shares our stuff too. So credit to him.
Yeah, Alex is a great guy, as nice a man as you'll ever want to meet. So I want to thank him and all the support he's given us. But we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube. literally over 100 places you can find us. So if they got podcasts, you're going to be able to find The Grueling Truth. Make sure you come back with us tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. And tomorrow at noon, we'll have Survive in Advance. We have an interesting guest. We have actually the team president for the Orlando Apollos from the AAF, which folded a couple weeks ago. So we're going to get a little inside scoop on him on what exactly went down with the Apollos and the AAF. So make sure you check us out at noon. And then tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, we'll have Bobby Sheridan for the Sheridan Report. And Bobby will be picking winners as always. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Remember, iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you hear Force Podcast, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.